Headache, a consequence of last night's whiskey drinking with Alvin. I rarely drank more than one glass, but yesterday we'd emptied almost half the bottle while sitting in the kitchen talking gunto late at night. I struggled to get out of bed and wandered to the bathroom. My face in the mirror looked gaunt. Dark circles under my eyes. The events of last night came back to mind in all their unpleasantness. The empty box, Shirley's cruel words, the laughter of the guests, Veronica's camera, pointed at me face in the moment of humiliation. I took a shower trying to wash away not only the physical fatigue, but also the bitterness of the memories. It didn't work. They remained like a thorn in my side. In the kitchen, I brewed a strong cup of coffee and sat by the window, looking out at my small backyard. Spring was in full swing. The first blossoms were blooming on the apple tree Catherine and I had planted years ago. Their soft pink color contrasted with the grayness of my thoughts. The empty box. You're just as empty and useless. Those words spun around in my head like a broken record. It wasn't that I'd never given much thought to how Shirley felt about me. The years of estrangement spoke for themselves. But I hadn't expected such blatant cruelty, such public humiliation. Why? What had I done to deserve such hatred? Or was it not about what I'd done, but about who I wasn't to her? The ringing of the doorbell interrupted my gloomy musings. Glanced at the clock. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. Alvin had probably come to check on me as promised. Opening the door, I did indeed see my neighbor. He looked worried, though he tried to hide it behind his usual grumpiness. "You look like shit," he said instead of greeting me. "I feel accordingly," I replied, letting him inside. "Coffee?" "I'll have some." We walked into the kitchen where I poured him a cup of coffee. Alvin sat down at the table, took his smartphone out of his pocket, and put it down in front of him. "How are you?" he asked, looking at me carefully. I shrugged. "I've been better. Hunter?" Alvin stepped forward. "I need to show you something. But first, I want you to know that what Shirley and her family did wasn't your fault. No one deserves to be treated like that, especially by their own children." His serious tone alerted me. "What's wrong?" Alvin picked up the phone and after a moment's hesitation, turned it toward me. "Lydia saw it this morning. The video went online last night. On the screen, I saw some social media page I didn't use. The top entry belonged to Veronica. Pie, my granddaughter." The headline read, "Empty box for an empty man. Grandpa is shocked." Below the headline was a video, the same one Veronica shot yesterday. I saw myself opening the box, the bewilderment on my face, the gloating smiles of Shirley and Norman. I heard their cruel words and the laughter of the guests. But worse than the video were the comments underneath. Dozens, if not hundreds of strangers laughed at my humiliation, added their insults, shared the post further. "The old man's face is priceless. This is how you deal with toxic parents. Grandpa looks like a typical boomer who deserves it. Brilliant. Haven't laughed like that in a long time." They're wary of their comments condemning this behavior, expressing sympathy for me, the stranger in the video, but they were a minority. I stared at the screen and a cold emptiness spread inside. It's one thing to be humiliated in front of a dozen people, most of whom I will never see again. It's quite another when your humiliation becomes entertainment for thousands of strangers around the world. How many people have already seen this?" I asked, still struggling to find the words. Alvin picked up his phone and checked the stats. "Over 15,000 views," he answered grimly, "and the number is growing." The video was starting to spread. I felt the blood drain from my face. 15,000 people, 15,000 strangers watched my daughter and son-in-law publicly humiliate me, and most found it amusing. "The world has gone crazy," I muttered, turning away from the window. When did humiliating a person become entertainment? "Hunter," Alvin put a hand on Miss Holder. We can do something about this. We can try to get the video taken off the net. There are rules against such content. I shook my head. What's the point? If it's already spread, there's no stopping it. Besides, I don't even know how to use these social networks. Lydia does, Alvin said. She works with it every day, and she's very angry about what happened. I looked up. Lydia saw it. Alvin nodded. She came across the video this morning. One of her subscribers shared it. She called me right away. I sighed, feeling tired, which had nothing to do with the sleepless night or the whiskey I drunk. What could she do? Remove the video from the internet? Make people forget what they'd already seen? Not exactly. Alvin pulled another phone out of his pocket, his own. She wanted me to tell you that she wants to talk to you. She could come over any time. I hesitated. I didn't want to see anyone. I wanted to cower in a corner and lick my wounds alone, but another part of me knew that wouldn't solve the problem. Okay, I said at last, let him come. Alvin dialed his daughter's number, spoke to her briefly, and disconnected. She be here. In 20 minutes, she's coming straight from the newsroom. We sat in silence, finishing our coffee. I felt grateful to Alvin for not trying to comfort me with empty words or useless advice. He was just there, and that was enough. You know, I said after a long silence, I always thought the worst thing was loneliness. Turns out there are worse things. Alvin nodded. Betrayal by loved ones. Nothing hurts worse. 20 minutes later, as promised, Lydia arrived. I heard her car pull up, the door slam. Alvin went to open the door, and I stayed in the kitchen, feeling strangely numb. Lydia entered with a brisk step, carrying with her the smell of fresh air and some floral scent off perfume. She was an attractive woman in her 36th year, tall, slender with short brown hair and the lively brown eyes she had inherited from her father. Mr. Broom, she came over and to my surprise hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry, Fishapen, to you. I patted her back awkwardly, unaccustomed to such an open display of emotion. Thank you, Lydia, and please call me Hunter. She pulled away and sat across from me, placing her bag on the table. I saw that disgusting video, she said without preamble. What your daughter and her family did is unforgivable, and the fact that they put it online makes it even worse. I nodded, not knowing what to say. Hunter. Lydia leaned forward, looking me straight in the eye. I can help. I have a platform. I have a voice. And I want to use them to right this injustice. What do you have in mind? I asked, intrigued by her determined tone. Lydia pulled a laptop out of her bag and opened it up. In addition to working at the newspaper, I blog about city life. I have over 50,000 subscribers, not just in Winston-Salem, but all over the country. People listen to what I have to say. She turned the screen toward me, showing a page of her blog. I saw a professionally designed site with photos of the town, articles about local events, and interviews with residents. I can use this video. Lydia continued, but in a completely different context, not as a funny prank, but as an example of outrageous disrespect for the older generation, as a demonstration of how cruel the internet can be. What's that going to accomplish? I asked, still not sure what she was getting at. It will change the narrative, Lydia explained. Instead of being an object of ridicule, you will become an example of dignity in the face of cruelty, and your daughter and her family. Well, public opinion can be a powerful force. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to just forget all of this, lock myself away in my house, and never face the outside world again. But the other part, the part that still retained pride and a sense of justice, was responding to Lydia's suggestion. Do you want to use the same video? I asked. Yes, she nodded. With your permission, of course. I'm going to write an article about how social media can be a tool for bullying, especially against the elderly. About how easy it is today to turn humiliation into entertainment content, and about how you responded to this situation with dignity. I'm not sure I started, but Alvin interrupted me. Hunter, think about it. These people have publicly humiliated you and put it on display for the whole world to see. They need to realize that such actions have consequences. I looked out the window at the blossoming apple trees in the yard. Catherine loved those flowers. Every spring she would put the branches in a vase on the kitchen table, filling the house with their delicate fragrance. What would Catherine say? I asked quietly, more to myself than to my guests. I didn't know your wife, Lydia replied softly, but I doubt she would approve of what your daughter did. I sighed, making a decision. Good. Do what you think is right. Lydia brightened. Thank you for your trust. I promise I will present the situation in a way that respects you. What do I need to do? I asked, feeling unsure in the unfamiliar territory of the internet and social media. Nothing, Lydia replied confidently. Just give me permission to use the video and perhaps agree to a short interview so I can convey your point of view. The thought of talking about my feelings for publication made me uncomfortable, but I understood Lydia's logic. My voice was needed. Fourth story to have weight. Not tonight, I said. I need some time to gather my thoughts. Of course, Lydia nodded. Maybe tomorrow. The sooner we respond to this video, the more effective the response will be. I agreed, and we arranged for her to come in tomorrow afternoon for an interview. When Lydia left, Alvin stayed behind. He looked at me with an expression. I couldn't quite pinpoint something between pride and concern. Are you sure you want to go this way? He asked. It could lead to an even bigger breakup with Shirley. I grinned bitterly. A breakup? After last night, I'm not sure there's anything left to break. She made it clear that I was for her. Alvin nodded, accepting my answer. You know, he said after a pause, sometimes I envy you. Jalaus? I looked at him in surprise. What's there to envy? You had Catherine, he said simply. True love. I'd been married twice, and both times it had been well wrong. You had the real thing. I smiled, remembering yes, it was. But sometimes I think that if Catherine had been alive, things might have turned out differently with Shirley. She's always been the mediator between us. Maybe, Alvin agreed, but you can change the past. You can only decide what to do now. We spent the rest of the day doing the usual things. Alvin helped me with some repairs in the workshop. A shelf that had been wobbling for a long time had finally gotten new mounts. Then we ordered pizza and watched an old western on TV. Simple, ordinary things that helped take my mind off the heavy thoughts. In the evening, after Alvin left, I sat down at my desk in the workshop. In front of me lay the Howard clock, a complex early 20th century movement that I had promised to restore for the museum. The work required concentration and precision, exactly what I needed right now. Putting on my magnifying glasses, I began to carefully disassemble the mechanism, arranging the parts in a specific order on a clean cloth. Each gear, each spring, each screw had its own place and function. Together, they created a complex system that, when properly adjusted, worked with amazing precision. Clocks, unlike humans, were predictable. If something went wrong, you could always find the cause and fix it. With people, it was more complicated, especially the ones you loved. Every once in a while, I would take a break from work and look out the window, watching the dusk fade. My mind was spinning with thoughts of tomorrow's interview with Lydia. What I would say, how I would explain my feelings. What did I really feel? Pain, of course, disappointment, but strangely also relief. As if the last illusion had dissipated, and now I could see the situation for what it really was. The phone rang. interrupting my musings. It looked at the screen and was surprised to see Shirley's name. My heart skipped a beat. Why was she calling? To apologize or to add another humiliation? After the fifth ring, I answered. Yes, Dad, Shirley's. Voice sounded strained. We have to talk about what? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. About yesterday. Yeah, we didn't expect you to react like that. I gripped the phone tighter. How do you expect me to react to public humiliation? It was. Just a prank, she sounded defensive. Everybody does it. It's for the internet. For the internet, I repeated. So, it's okay to humiliate my dad in front of strangers and put it online if it's for the internet. You're dramatizing everything. Shirley sounded annoyed now. We just wanted to create a funny moment. Veronica is gaining followers. She needed viral content. I closed my eyes, feeling a wave of bitterness rising inside. My humiliation was just a way to gain followers for my granddaughter. Did it work? I asked. Did the video go viral? Actually, yes. A note of pride slipped into her voice. It's already gotten over 20,000 views. But that's not the point. I'm just calling to say, that we didn't mean to offend you. Not an apology. I noted. Just a statement that they didn't mean what they clearly meant. I hear you, Shirley, I said calmly. Is that it? A pause? Actually, no. Her voice became more businesslike. There's something else. Remember when we talked about the house, about how it was getting hard for you to take care of it? I tensed up. We had actually discussed it a few months ago. Shirley had suggested that I move into a nursing home, or as she called it, an active retirement community. I declined. I remember, I said. I found a great place, she continued enthusiastically. Sunny Hills. It's only 15 minutes from us. They have a studio apartment available. And best of all, they accept payment through the sale of existing properties. That's it. Everything was starting to make sense now. The birthday invitation, the ostentatious concern, it was all part of the plan to convince me to sell the house and move. Is that why you invited me to your birthday party? I asked bluntly. To discuss selling the house? What? No, of course not. Shirley sounded indignant, but somehow unconvinced. That's not the same thing, Dot. It's just a coincidence that I found out about this place. Now I was silent, and she continued, clearly nervous. Look, Dad, you can't live alone in that old house forever. It's too big for you. It needs constant upkeep. Sunny Hills will take care of you. There are people there your age. Surely, I interrupted her. I'm not selling the house, and I'm not moving to a nursing home. This is my home, and I'm staying here as long as I can. But Dad, no. My voice was firm. It's out of the question. If that's all you wanted to talk about, then this conversation is over. The pause dragged on. When Shirley spoke again, her voice was cold. This is why I can't talk to you properly. You've always been like that. Stubborn, uncooperative, thinking only of yourself. That's an interesting characterization from a man who publicly humiliated his father for likes on the internet. I replied. It was a joke, she exclaimed. God, why do you always have to make everything so complicated? Goodbye, Shirley, I said, and disconnected without waiting for an answer. I put the phone down and went back to work on the clock, but my hands were shaking a little, so I decided to take a break. Walking out to the backyard, I sat down on a bench under the apple tree. The night was quiet with only the distant barking of a dog breaking the stillness, so that's what it was all about. The whole show, the birthday party, the family reunion, it was all just a way to get me to talk about selling the house. And when I didn't react as they expected to their joke, they decided to act directly. Was that the real reason for their cruelty? Or was there a deeper underlying real resentment that had been building up over the years? I didn't know, and frankly, I wasn't sure I wanted to know anymore. One thing was clear. Tomorrow's interview with Lydia was taking on a new meaning. It wasn't just a reaction to a humiliating video. It was an assertion of my right to live my life the way I wanted without pressure and manipulation from those who were supposed to be looking out for me, not my property. I looked up at the starry sky, breathing in the scent of apple blossoms, and felt a strange calm. It was as if the last piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, and now I saw the full picture, unsightly but clear. Tomorrow I'll tell me story, not for revenge, no, for the truth, and let Shirley and her family realize that some actions have consequences, even if they were done for the internet. The interview with Lydia took place on Monday afternoon. She came with her laptop and a small recorder, and we spent about 2 hours talking in my workshop amidst the ticking clock. I told her about my relationship with Shirley, how it had changed since Catherine's death, the gradual estrangement that had only intensified over the years. It was unusual and uncomfortable to talk about personal things, but Lydia knew how to listen, asked questions delicately, and gradually I opened up more than I had planned. I told her about Shirley's call yesterday, about her insistence that I sell the house and move to Sunny Hills. So that's what it was all about, Lydia said thoughtfully. Fee house, the money. I think it was more than that, I replied. There was something else, some deep-seated resentment that had been building up for years. Lydia nodded. Often there are complex feelings behind such cruelty that people can't or won't express directly. But to use humiliation as a way to achieve your goals, it's unforgivable. When the interview ended, Lydia said she planned to publish the piece tomorrow morning. I will include the video with your permission, she said. But the context will be completely different, not as an amusing prank, but as an example of how easy it is these days to turn someone else's humiliation into entertainment. I agreed, though I was still bothered by thought of more people seeing my humiliating moment. But perhaps it was a necessary price to pay. Lydia left, promising to send me a link to the publication as soon as it was available. I spent the rest of the day working on Howard's watch, trying not to think about the upcoming article and the possible repercussions. Tuesday morning began as usual. Coffee, reading the news on my tablet, checking mail. At 9 o'clock came a message from Lydia with a link to her blog. I took a deep breath and clicked on it. The title of the article read, When Family Humiliation Becomes Entertainment, a Disturbing Trend on Social Media. Underneath it was a photo, a still frame, from a video of me holding an empty box with my face full length, so readers would see not an abstract story, but a real person facing abuse. I started reading. Lydia wrote a powerful, emotional yet reasoned text about how social media has changed the way we view other people's humiliation, turning it into a form of entertainment. She described the situation with the video without naming names, but detailing how the daughter and her family organized the public humiliation of her elderly father for the sake of views and likes. A quote from my interview was woven into the text. When you see your humiliation become entertainment for thousands of strangers, something inside you dies. Not just trust in your loved ones, but your faith in humanity in general. Lydia went on to analyze the comments under the original video, showing how easily the anonymity of the internet turns people into cruel observers of other people's pain. She also mentioned that there were self-serving motives behind the prank, a desire to gain control of an elderly person's property. She ended the article by calling for more empathy on social media and respect for the older generation whose experience and wisdom is often devalued in today's society. I reached the end, feeling a strange mix of emotions, relief that my story had been told with dignity and anxiety about what would happen next. Not an hour later, the bell rang. It was Alvin. "Did you see Lydia's article?" he said without preamble. Yeah, I just read it. It's going viral, he sounded surprised. Lydia says it's been read by over 10,000 people in 2 hours, and the numbers are growing. I didn't know how to react to that news. Is that good? Depends on what you wanted to accomplish, Alvin replied. But if the goal was to change the perception of the situation, then yes, it's very good. By lunchtime, the article was everywhere. Lydia called and said it had been picked up by several major news sites specializing in social topics. Veronica's original video began to be flagged en masse as inappropriate, and the platform's administration eventually removed it. But by then, the story had already spread far beyond a single video. The hashtag #EmptyBox became a trend that symbolized disrespect for the older generation. People shared stories about their parents and grandparents and the importance of family, ties, and respect. Many told of their own experiences of encountering ageism and cruelty on social media. I tried to stay out of this storm, but information still reached me through Alvin and Lydia. Among other things, they reported that Shirley Norman and Veronica had started receiving messages from outraged users. Some recognized them from videos, others through mutual acquaintances. In a small town like Winston-Salem, secrets don't live long. That evening, another call came in, this time from Shirley. I hesitated before answering, but decided it would be cowardly to avoid the conversation. Yes, I said, picking up the phone. What have you done? Her voice was shaking with rage. Do you have any idea what's going on? Hello, Shirley, I answered calmly. What are you talking about? Don't pretend, she was almost shouting, this article. All these people writing nasty things to us. Veronica's hysterical. Her account's been blocked. Norman got a call from Theophis. He's in trouble at work. It's all because of you. I took a deep breath drain to stay calm. No, Shirley. This is all because of you. Because of what you did. It was just a joke. There was desperation in her voice. How could you do that to your own family? Family? I grinned unhappily. Do you really think we're family after what happened? Pause. Did you have Toe take it public? Now there was a pitying note in her voice. We could have worked it out between us. How? I asked. You were the one who took it public first, surely. You and Veronica. You made my humiliation public. That's different, she exclaimed. No one knew who you were, and now they know who you are, I replied. It's unpleasant, isn't it? Shirley took a deep breath, clearly trying to pull herself together. Listen, Dad, you have to make a statement. Say it was all a misunderstanding that we've made up. That woman who wrote the article should take it down. Why? I asked. To save your reputation. The reputation of a family that publicly humiliated their own father and grandfather for the sake of likes on the internet. You don't understand. Her voice was angry again. We're in serious trouble. People recognize us on Fest Street. Veronica can't leave the house without someone saying something nasty to her. Norman's in danger of getting fired. I'm sorry about what happened, I said, and it was the truth. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't want to cause them any real harm. But I won't lie for you. What you did was cruel, and putting it online was even worse. So you're not going to do anything? Her voice turned icy. You're just going to let it go? What would you do if you were me? Shirley? I asked quietly. After everything that's happened, silence. It's about the house, isn't it? She finally said. Are you getting back at me for suggesting you move? I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. No, Shirley, it's not revenge. It's just the truth. The truth about what you did. You're going to regret it. Her voice sounded threatening. We all will, but you especially. With those words, she disconnected. The moment I put the phone down, a silence settled over the room, thick and still. I stayed seated, my hands resting in my lap, my eyes fixed on the workshop window. Outside, the sky had dimmed into a soft twilight, and I watched as the wind gently stirred the leaves. Inside, the only sound was the steady ticking of the old clock hanging on the wall, marking each passing second like a metronome to my thoughts. Shirley's voice still echoed in my ears. Her words hadn't scared me, not really. There was no more damage she could do that she hadn't already done. But what got to me, what truly hurt, was the way she still couldn't see what she'd done wrong. The way she refused to take any responsibility for how things had turned out. That blind spot in her heart, that inability to acknowledge the pain she'd caused, left a heavy sadness inside me. A kind of grief that was different from anger. It was quiet, hollow, and deeply personal. Over the next several days, I tried to slip back into routine. I focused on repairing watches, met with my usual clients, and read a bit in the evenings with a cup of tea beside me. Outwardly, life looked normal. But inwardly, the story that had erupted around me carried on, even without my direct involvement. Lydia kept me informed through regular phone calls. She told me how the article had touched people. It was spreading fast and stirring a lot of discussion, especially about digital responsibility, how we treat others online, and how quickly we forget there are real people behind the screens. A few TV stations had reached out to Lydia asking for interviews, but she politely turned them down. "I know you don't want this to turn into a media circus," she told me one evening, "but people need to hear it. It's not just your story, it's a reflection of something much bigger. How we treat each other when we think no one's watching." I understood what she meant, and I respected her passion. But I was grateful she didn't push. She never pressured me, only asked. Gently on Friday evening, Alvin called me out of the blue. "Lydia's making her famous lasagna," he said. "We want you to come by. No pressure, just dinner. She says we need to celebrate the article's impact, and she'd love to see you." I paused, then agreed. Truthfully, I needed to be around people who made me feel safe. People who saw me. Not just the man in the article. Alvin only lived a couple blocks away. His home was a small, warm one-story house, much like mine, but his garden always stood out colorful, organized, full of life. He had a talent for making things grow. I, on the other hand, had never had the patience for plants. As I walked up to his porch, the front door flew open before I even knocked. Lydia stood there, beaming. "Hunter," she said, wrapping me in a warm hug. "I'm so glad you came." The moment I stepped inside, I was greeted by the comforting smell of garlic, tomato sauce, and freshly baked bread. It reminded me of holidays long ago, of comfort, family, warmth. Alvin met me in the living room, offering a glass of wine with a grin. "To justice," he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his and smiled. "To good friends." Dinner was lovely. Lydia's lasagna lived up to its reputation. We chatted easily about books we'd read, strange stories from the local news, and even the movies we loved as kids. No one brought up the article or the video, and I was quietly thankful. It felt like a small island of peace in a world that had been anything but. After dinner, we moved to the living room with mugs of coffee and a simple dessert. That's when Lydia, gently and without drama, brought up what had been on all of our minds. "I got a letter," she said, "from the editor at the New York Times. They're interested in publishing an extended version of the article in their Sunday edition." I was genuinely happy for her. "Congratulations," I said. "That's an incredible accomplishment." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "They'd also like to include an interview with you, but only if you're comfortable." I told them I'd ask. I paused. A part of me wanted to let it all go, to turn the page and be done with it. But another part, the part that remembered, the pain, the humiliation, the way others were affected, knew the story might help someone else. "I'll think about it," I said honestly. I can't promise anything, but I'll think about it. Lydia nodded gently. That's all I ask. No pressure. Then Alvin cleared his throat and changed the subject. Have you heard from Shirley? He asked. Or any of them? I shook my head. No, not since that last phone call. They're in a tough spot, Lydia said softly. I heard Norman's job might be in jeopardy. His company cares a lot about reputation, and well, that video didn't help. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I truly meant it. I didn't wish them harm. Despite everything, I wouldn't want anyone to suffer. But at the same time, choices come with consequences. They made their decision, I said quietly. Yes, Lydia agreed. And every decision shapes what comes next. We let the conversation drift back to gentler things. Lydia talked about expanding her blog, maybe turning her experiences into a book one day. Alvin shared his plans for the spring garden, the new rose varieties he was excited to try. Before I knew it, the clock showed nearly 11 p.m. I stood and thanked them for a wonderful evening. I meant it. I'd needed this more than I realized. Standing by the door, I hesitated. It just felt good, I said slowly, being with people who see you. Alvin finished. I nodded, a quiet warmth rising in my chest. Yes, who really see me. Lydia hugged me again. Come back any time, she said. You're always welcome in this house. Later that night, I walked home under a sky glittering with stars. A breeze stirred through the trees, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Yes, there had been pain. Yes, Shirley and I may never fix what broke between us. But there was something new here, something no betrayal could steal. Friendship, respect, and the return of something I thought I'd lost my self-worth. Back at home, I saw the little red light blinking on my answering machine. I pressed play. Shirley's voice crackled through the speaker, tired, brittle. Dad, it's me. We need to talk. Please call me back. It's important. I stood there for a moment, listening as her voice faded into silence, followed by the cold, robotic beep that marked the end of the message. Then, with a calm heart, I reached out and erased it. I didn't feel anger, not even satisfaction, just a quiet certainty that some bridges cannot and should not be rebuilt.